Hey folks, how's it going? Dr. Spin, eclectic album reviews and general musical meanderings. I'm going to make this real brief because you have a lot ahead of you. You stumbled across my viewer's choice roundtable review for the mid-year top 12. These 12 albums that you see me scrolling over here on the right have been selected by my viewership by a very meticulous process throughout the first half of this year. We've boiled it down to these 12 albums, and some members of my viewership have taken the time out of their schedule to sit down and chat with me a little bit about this music and what we thought about it, maybe the reasons why we chose it, maybe reasons why we didn't choose it, different perspectives on this music. It's a really great discussion with people who are really lovely and passionate about music. So I don't want to give it too much away because, again, this discussion goes on for a while, but I think that there's a lot of really great topics and a lot of really great interactions come out of this engagement. So without any further ado, let's go and get to it. So this last year, when we did Tier 1, one of the things that I did differently was I divvied up. There's 24 albums in Tier 1, and of those, a quarter of them were intentionally like classic albums. Cool. Something I'd never heard of before, never had in my collection before, but by people that I was kind of familiar with. And it was very interesting to see how that had an impact on this, the viewer's choice one over my own. It's very interesting, right? And I found that I tend to be kind of tough on on older albums. I mean, I listen to them, I enjoy them, but I'm always like, really, it's got to be really like spotless for me to let it pass over new stuff because I like novelty. I crave novelty, but if you go through this list, we'll see. I think there's a lot of nostalgia embedded in these selections, which is not a fault at all. It's actually, I think nostalgia is a pretty powerful musical force that we don't talk about enough. To be honest, I actually hold that there's some artists out there that play this nostalgia almost like you play an instrument. We'll see an entry like that, I think, on this list today. So. Because we have so many kind of classic albums, and we also have people that participate in different levels, right? Some people are like, oh yeah, I like that album, they'll click it. Or some people are like, well, I don't need either of those albums, I may not vote this time, and that's fine, that's part of it. But it really does weigh in, I think, these classic albums heavily, right? Mm. So it's interesting, but it also gives an opportunity to look at them and unpack them. So that all being said, before I kind of get into the blow-by-blow album bit, I'd like to get your feedback perhaps on the process and the albums that we kind of just generally went through, because I'm always looking for ways to refine it. It is imperfect. The process is imperfect. You're never going to get all your favorite stuff on there because there's only 12 slots. I mean, you have to leave some good stuff behind unless you have a really bad semester, So I'm always curious to get people's feedback on it so I can kind of think about how to refine it as we go. So I'll open the floor to those of you that might have an opinion on that or feedback on that part of it.
I don't really have anything.
No, I mean, it's good.
I think it's been really good. I think it's been really interesting how you're bringing in a lot of those older albums. Mm-hmm. I tend to be the opposite of you, and nostalgia. If I feel like that artist had some influence on other artists, or that gives it more credibility to me. But yeah, it's been really cool, just the whole gamut of types of music, and I like that.
Right. Well, I know that for sure you have at least one title on here that's an album that you were like really connected with. As we'll get there, I think. But like for me, that particular album, like the Fleetwood Mac album, we'll get there in a minute. Like for me, that's a Fleetwood Mac album that I've never heard. Like the last couple of years, I've been going through. Hey, Brent, how's it going? There he is.
There's the man.
Glorious.
Here I am.
Very good. So, but because I don't have any real connection, I've listened to the last couple of years. I've sort of been on a jag with Fleetwood Mac. I'll add an album here and add an album here, and it's cool. But I don't have connections with those albums because I've never listened to them and lived with them for any length of time, right? Mm-hmm. So they won't have the same meaning to me as perhaps like Barbara. You and I have talked about this. Like that's an album that you can put a pin on most moments in your childhood because of that album being where it was.
Absolutely, it's crazy.
So it's kind of cool, I think, to consider that too when we get into these classic albums, oldies type albums.
Yeah.
Oh man, this was one that played in my house. I mean, drop the needle on the turntable and just let it run. It's an interesting album because it's the first one Stevie Nicks was on, and I don't think they'd really found her voice yet. Mm-hmm. I don't think they really appreciated her as a vocalist yet. She's just kind of blends into it.
Right. It's interesting to me. We're kicking it off. Perfect. Fleetwood Mac. Let's go. the thing about me because they came in as a songwriting team, right? Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks came on kind of as a songwriting team, and up to that point, Fleetwood Mac was kind of a blues band.
This was their 10th album.
Yeah,
psychedelic blues is what I heard.
Right. And as you say, like there's a whole era of Fleetwood Mac that most people, like when you say Fleetwood Mac, they don't even think about that. But as you say, Brent, this is 10 albums in.
It's true. Yeah. What I was going to say about Stevie Nicks is Landslide is on this album.
Yeah.
I believe. Am I wrong about that? I think it is. And that's, an iconic song for her. Everybody wants to do that song. But in trying to write my own music lately, I have a whole appreciation for this album because this is the first time they came in and played with this band, and it is perfection. The harmonies are perfection. I don't feel like they practiced for 2 years and then went, okay, I think we got it together. They just boom, they hit it running. And I have a whole appreciation for Mick Fleetwood's talent on the drums. And really, I think this songwriting duo coming in upped everybody's game. There's so many just incredible songs, just with the introspective words and the guitar playing and just all the little catchy things. I mean, it's brilliant. It's to me, it's absolutely brilliant.
Right.
It's definitely a pivot point for the band. Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
It's a hard reboot. I mean,
there you go.
It was,
push both the buttons in and just start it over, For me, I've always been a really big fan of Lindsey Buckingham.
I can see
he's like, and it's funny because I just kind of discovered his voice much later. He had an album, Out of the Cradle, in the 90s. And I was working in a record store at the time. And the introduction for the first song on that has this really intricate, like, classical guitar piece in it. And a song followed by that called Don't Look Down. And those two songs, that pairing of songs was like, that was so brilliant. And it really changed the way that I perceived his input, because he conceives of his guitar playing like almost as its own orchestra. And you'll see that in some of his solo work. Like, he'll get together, some of his solo work, he has like 20 guitar players behind him. It's literally a guitar choir, right? So to see him come in with with Stevie Nicks as a writing team, they'd actually released an album before this. It's like, Buckingham Nicks as a duo. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a hard to find album. I've been really thinking about going and checking it out. It's been released recently. I think it's easier to find now, but that's one that I've been really curious about. But yeah, for him to come in, and I think, as you're saying, I think Lindsey Buckingham pushed Christina McVie really hard, right? And here's my thing with Fleetwood Mac albums, and this is my hot take in general. Fleetwood Mac has done many, many fantastic albums, and some of their songs are some of the best songs ever written. I mean, Rhiannon's on this album. You can't mess with that song.
No,
you can't touch it.
It's the tone, the feel of the song. It's just, it's got everything. But then you have a song like Warm Ways, and that for me is a song I'm like, meh, it's good. But I think Fleetwood Mac in general as great as they are, they have very few perfect albums. They have albums with like a song here that's got, okay, it's kind of meh. But then Rhiannon, I mean, you can't argue with that. With the exception of maybe Rumors. Like, Rumors is the one where, inarguably, especially if you know what happened with Rumors and the backstory behind it, it's very difficult not to appreciate the genius behind that album. But as I've gone through a lot of Fleetwood Mac's catalog, they have lots of albums with great songs, and then they have kind of a couple mess songs on there. And this is where somebody's going to stab me in the back if I say this too loud, but it's Christine McVie's songs usually are the ones that I'm like, okay, they're okay. They're good. They're good. Yeah. But she got better because I think, Lindsey Buckingham came on and just put all his cards on the table on this first album that he came on.
Yeah, there are like 6 famous songs from this album, which is incredible. And it went platinum 7 times in the US. So that's incredible.
Well, you're right. Landslide was on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. Like, I started to get confused because I've listened to both albums.
No, I just looked it up. You're right.
Thank you for doing that. But yeah, the songwriting is out of this world. It just really is. The lyrics they came up with. I heard it a whole different way this time than I did growing up with it, because we dropped the needle on it and it would just keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
when we got tired of that side doing 6 times, we turned it over and do the other side 6 times. No. And yeah, Warm Ways wasn't one of my favorites, but now that I'm listening to it again, I can appreciate it because I don't know why. Maybe just there's precision on the instruments and just, I don't know.
No, and this is another thing. I want to get back to, sorry, cat attack, excuse me. He really loves to be in my blog. Okay, cat. Okay, now go. Love you. The thing that you talk a little bit about them walking in with with the vocals, and this is something I've thought more and more about Fleetwood Mac, especially as it relates to Stevie Nicks, because her voice is incredibly distinctive. Like in any lesser talent, if she had any lesser, I guess, musicianship is a better way to put it, she could let her voice stick out of those vocals very, very easily.
And
when she's got those backups with the kind of like raspy characteristic tone that she has, she should stick out like a sore thumb, but she does not.
I know, I love
she
that.
Blends right in, and that really blows my mind how well she can blend in, despite the fact that her voice is so distinctive.
Yeah,
different album, but just think of like Gypsy. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, she really came into her own with Belladonna and some of those other ones when she went solo. But I have always heard that she had a cold during Rumors, and that's why she sounds so raspy on that one. Mm-hmm. And so I would argue that maybe this one is more really what she sounds like than Rumors, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I had always heard that.
There's a lot of rumors about Rumors.
Yeah, that's true. But I heard that one consistently, like through my whole life, so I thought it might be right.
It's very well could be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Anybody else? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, in my case, well, I'm usually not of the age bracket of listening to Fleetwood Mac like usually, but obviously mostly the big singles time, specifically more on the Rumors, which I jokingly call it like the greatest hits album of theirs that has sold a bajillion copies. But with this one, their self-titled one, I was really amused with most of it, especially Rhiannon, since I know it. But I do want to highlight a very specific song which I've never heard before, and I loved it, especially the ending solo over it. I'm So Afraid, the one that the Buckingham does the solo with.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Buckingham as a guitar voice I think he's so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's super underrated. And if you watch him play in general, like what I love about him is, and I feel this way about Pete Townsend, a little bit off topic, I suppose, but like he plays with so much passion. If you watch him play, like he loses himself in the music when he does live stuff. And I think he's really good at capturing that in the studio, right? So when you hear him solo in the studio, like I can visualize him like leaning into it, and that song is another one where I think that I can feel that from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great album. For me, it didn't make it through because it got locked up with the Monica Rocher Big Band. And that album is a big one for me. Like that could be album of the year material for me. So unfortunately they ran up against that one. I couldn't quite let it go past that one. But yeah,
I can understand that.
What's that?
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
They're so unique.
Yeah. Cool. So let's move on to the next one. I'll kind of go back up the top of the list because this is actually an interesting one. The Count Basie and the Quincy Jones album, the Basie One More Time. Now, the inspiration for me to get this one, first of all, was because Quincy Jones passed at the end of last year.
Oh.
Right, and that's a huge loss to the music community in general. I mean, has anybody seen the documentary on Netflix about Quincy Jones? Holy cow!
On my list.
Holy cow, man! If you think you know what an ounce of what Quincy Jones has done in his career, it's not even close to what he's done. I mean, you start off your career writing arrangements for Count Basie and conducting the Basie Big Band, and then go on to produce Thriller, like one of the top-selling albums of all time. And somehow, if you follow his career, that makes sense how he got there.
Did he do We Are the World as well? I think he did.
Mm-hmm.
Big player on We Are the World, absolutely.
Yeah, and Harry Belafonte too passed away. And
That's
doesn't
right.
Harry Belafonte have a connection to this album somehow?
I don't. If he does, I don't know it.
I thought I read something about that.
It's possible.
I'll go.
This would be the kind of time that Harry Belafonte, I think, was doing some stuff with the Basie band. So it could have been some of around the same time frame that Quincy Jones had done those, but I don't think he appears in this album.
Oh,
Yes, he produced "We Are the World."
Yes, yes.
yeah, I thought I remembered that.
I still remember that moment in that documentary when he wrote at the entry of the studio, like, leave your egos outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he didn't just do Thriller. I mean, with Michael Jackson, he did Off the Wall, which is a fantastic album.
Oh, I had that one, yeah.
And of course, Thriller, and then he did Bad in '87.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Plus, he did a bunch of film scores. I mean, he was all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even today, well, recently in the last 10 years, I think one of the biggest artists in the last 10 years that he signed in was Jacob Collier, if you're familiar with him. He's an amazing performer. I think he's coming right over here to my country in the next couple of months.
Wow. I'd love to research that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lead right there.
Yeah, but that Basie album, I thought it was pretty lovely. It was like, I kind of thought of it as a lovely jazz for prolonged talks after a meal. Like, you put it in the background and you get that smooth kind of sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get like that jump up in the square in the round table, which definitely was the highlight track on that one.
Right.
What made you pick that one from Count Basie?
I don't know. Yeah. It was like it was like a smoothie, relaxed, and then you jump up with a little bit more jazzy up rhythm.
Yeah.
And like perked me up my ears for a bit.
Right. See, for me, like I played in like jazz bands as part of my high school experience, right? And I've been thinking about this a lot recently because now they do like School of Rock stuff. You go to your school, School of Rock. For me, in my high school career, playing those jazz bands was like my band director's version of School of Rock because that's what they grew up with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So. Yeah. We're to the point now where even second or third generation people who are familiar with big band stuff is starting to kind of get harder and harder to connect with. And so for me, it's really refreshing to get this back in my ears because it's been a while since I've really dug in and listened to a big band album. And it's just fantastic. For me personally, like the precision and the accuracy of the players, like it's 5 saxophones. It's close your eyes and try to visualize when you're listening to these guys play 5 saxophones, playing that stuff so in tune and so every inflection, every alteration in volume is right there. And then of course the feel, right? As you say, it's both something that you can listen to in the background, but also you can dig into it, right? And really listen like da 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 da, like it. There's energy and aggression there that is also appealing. That's under the surface of that.
Yeah. My 16-year-old cousin just got invited he's a drummer, to jazz camp or whatever. Like, it was a big deal in his school that he got invited. And I was like, oh, you got to listen to this album, because he's got to get into like some of the old stuff and learn like where it all came from. But yeah, it's really fun. I loved it.
Yeah, I really, and that for me is because Basie has older stuff, and I enjoy that older stuff, but it's also marked by its production and its age a little bit, right? But those '60s recordings from Basie have a high enough production value that they don't have to listen through the production so much to hear what's there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, I thought you were going to say like a freshness to it too. Yeah. I felt like there was like a freshness to it, compared to some of the others that I've heard.
Yeah. Jumping back to Quincy Jones for a second, just consider this. He was born in 1924. So for him to make the transition from the big band sound of World War II all the way through the 60s to get to Michael Jackson, the funk, the pop, I mean, just the cross section of musical styles he was influential in is unbelievable.
You could argue that maybe he was an influencer to some of those styles too.
Absolutely, that's
produced a lot of those records. Yeah, which is even more.
I spoke wrong. I'm sorry. He was born in 33, but still,
that's a huge. Long.
He covers such a wide spectrum of the growth of modern day music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also kind of behind the scenes, right? I mean, unless we're all people who read liner notes, right?
Yeah,
We
sure.
keep up with that stuff. We want to know who plays what. But
Yeah.
the average person on the street, generally, even when Quincy Jones was at the height of his power, he wasn't like, Quincy Jones' greatest hits. There's, you have to know what those are because he worked behind the scenes on so many things, but he worked up behind the scenes on everything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he wrote my favorite all-time theme to a TV show, Sanford and Son.
Did he write Sanford and Son? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also another one that got pretty famous in the late 90s. The people that always call the Austin Powers theme, which is not actually obviously used for the movie, but it was way earlier from his film soundtracks.
I can't remember what that sounds like.
Oh
yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name right now, but
I know what you're talking about.
Very good.
Yeah, great. That's a great Count Basie and Quincy Jones together again. It's great, and I think it's a really great example of both Basie and Quincy early in his career. So it covers a couple of bases for sure.
Good pick. Good pick.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good pick.
Yeah,
that's a brand of big band jazz that I really appreciate.
Me too. Well, and then as a person who's been a jazz educator some in the past, like Count Basie's the model. Like if you go buy a big band arrangement for a high school band, the arrangement is for 5 saxophones, 5 trombones, 5 trumpets, 4-piece rhythm section. That's what Count Basie. He's the guy who set that standard. So he almost set what the idea of big band is. Plus bum bum bum. I mean that.
Yeah.
That's him. That's his lick. That people sing and go Count Basie. That is literally his signature.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you walk down the street, somebody hears that and they don't even know where it comes from. That's from Count Basie's fingers. He would literally put that at the end of almost every song as his like signature. Yeah.
Very cool.
So the next one up is an interesting one. So let's talk about this one. We got this Lisa Belladonna Electronic Voyages album. Now this has a little bit of interesting history because this is a sub. Now if you're for those of us who are maybe watching this, when we get to the last bit, I always allow the person who has the highest participation according to Facebook to pick one album off the list and sub it out for one other one.
What was subbed out, if you don't mind me asking?
It was the Freako album.
Oh, okay. Which got back in on this.
Which got back in. We saved it in the end, so it ended up being fine. But this is an interesting one because it's an electronic music album, and if you're a fan of Jean-Michel Jarre, by the way, it was Jeff Lane who was the guy, and Jeff Lane has a history as a synthesist, and he's a big fan of Jean-Michel Jarre. And he and I were talking about Lisa Belladonna, and pretty much got himself sold on that pretty quickly on that album. And if you're a fan of Jean-Michel Jarre and Mike Oldfield and that stuff, this is what he does, which he does for sure.
What is he famous for, Jean-Michel?
Jean-Michel Jarre was like a 70s synthesizer artist, and he never really had any huge big hits, but he was kind of like this pre-New Age music. Here you go.
Okay.
I'm showing you a couple of those albums.
Nice.
There you go. Amazing albums, well worth your time checking out.
I 100%. Will check those out. What so it's like electronic, but from the 70s.
It's electronic. He did stuff into the 80s too. My exposure to Jean-Michel Jarre was Zulu. I think yeah.
And, he did a lot of early experimentation with Moog synthesizers and Fairlights and like all the kind of new keyboards and synthesizers were coming out in the 70s. He did all these experiments with them and made these fantastic pre-New Age albums. His stuff kind of ended up being stuck in New Age bins whenever they got to record stores. But I don't, it's not like ambient music. It's a like
with Enya. Is it with Enya and the?
Well, but he's instrumental. Almost entirely instrumental, right? And so Lisa Belladonna, with all those innovations that he did as far as experiments go, set all these standards for electronic music and Moog synthesizers and that sort of thing. Lisa Belladonna is a very contemporary person who looks at all that stuff and has mastery over all of it. Mm-hmm. And she cranks out album after album after album of just insanely good music in that style. So if you're into like kind of atmospheric instrumental electronica, like, and it's not dance music, it's not that kind of electronica. It's like, artistic art music. Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things that I actually was going to mention about that Jean-Michel Jarre influence is that at first with the Lisa Belladonna album, I thought it was like, oh yeah, this is like more music concrete, like let's try out random sounds of this. But then themes start coming in, like very melodic themes. Mm-hmm. Like, oh wait, this thing like starts to grab my attention, to trying to give a long through of a very specific melody during the whole album, and then I ended up enjoying it a lot.
Yes,
because it's one of the things, because people mostly diss it up because, oh, it doesn't have any lyrics, oh, it doesn't have any throughput melody or any big standing moment, but then it catches you all of a sudden. The same thing with the Jean-Michel Jarre albums or with other composers like Wendy Carlos or anything like that, is that melody, that point of the melody which grabs you.
Right. And cohesion. Mm-hmm. Like she'll have a 15-minute track, but it doesn't really feel like 15 minutes because of the way she puts it all together and paces it and brings, as you say, melodic material in and out to give it coherency across that 15 minutes. Sometimes you'll listen to longer tracks like that and you're like, drags on. But for me, when I listen to a lot of her music, I don't notice the passage of time, I guess, in the same way. It doesn't feel like it gets bogged down. And so Jeff Lane, I talked to him. He was unable to make it this evening, but I asked him if he had any comments that that he wanted me to throw out there as far as this goes. Here's what he wrote me back, so I don't misquote him. It says, in my mind space, I've been kind of nursing an idea about how there's been a line of development in the art of orchestration from Berlioz through Mahler, through Bernstein, through John Adams. Possibly, Jean-Michel Jarre and Lisa Belladonna represent an extension of that same line of development. Visionaries who invent or codify a new sonic palette. I skipped a few names in there, of course. You'd have to give props to Mike Oldfield and Tangerine Dream and Vangelis and many, many others. But in my mind, Jarre and Lisa Belladonna represent something altogether distinct and valuable in opening modern ears to the possibilities inherent in electronic music. That was his statement on it. And I was like, right on. I was like, it's a tall order to draw a straight line between like Berlioz and Jean-Michel Jarre. So I kind of asked him about that. And what it's really about is presenting new sounds. This is what he's talking about. He also talked a little bit about Stravinsky in that regard. Like these guys were using the orchestra to present new tones and combinations of sounds, much in the same way that Jean-Michel Jarre was doing in the 70s. So, but the thing that distinguishes them, I think, Jean-Michel Jarre from Lisa Belladonna's work is that, again, she has the benefit of hindsight, where his experimentation is her vocabulary. And I think that's it's a difference. It's a difference. She's still experimenting, don't get me wrong, but there's a well-established vocabulary for what she's doing due to the work of those guys from the 70s.
Yep. It would be very interesting if she's, I don't have any background on her specifically, but if she does perform it live, like for example, bringing the ARP or bringing in the Moog synthesizer and trying to do it all live, because one of the main things, sorry for bringing back John for a second, is that he performs it pretty much live as it is. And it would be really interesting if she does a show or even a streaming show, like doing it all at that moment.
Yeah, if you look her up on YouTube, she has several live performances from her studio. Yeah, and she does it all live. It's really pretty impressive. She has a studio, I think, close by in Tennessee, I think, somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains out over here. And she works as a studio that's just got, keyboards all the way around it. And it's super impressive. And every time I see her do anything, it's fascinating because she clearly has mastery over all the stuff. I mean, you look at it, it's just like a bunch of... I know kind of how synthesizers work, and I know enough to know that I don't know how those knobs all work. There's a lot, And she's just like she's playing the knobs more than she's playing the keyboards even.
Jeff, I was listening to this just quickly because I didn't listen to any of these while I didn't even know I was going to be here. So
I'm glad you're here, man.
I'm glad to be here too, man. What's most interesting about this conversation is listening to other people talk about music and what they listen for.
Right.
I mentioned last time how I'm really into timbre and just the sound of things themselves. And what I was just noticing about Lisa Belladonna and what you're saying about orchestration, a lot of these orchestrators, and not only Stravinsky, who you mentioned, really good at this, but Ravel is really good at this too. Not his compositions, but he did a lot of orchestration work on the side as well as compose. And they're very good at dovetailing sounds and dovetailing timbres between instruments. And that's actually what she's kind of doing with frequency. So she's like dovetailing these frequencies. She's like playing frequency through orchestration, which is what makes it really cool. The layering of that, I really like it a lot. It's a really good pick.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good observation. The thing that when I was talking to Jeff Lane about this, I talked about Stravinsky a little bit. And whenever I was in college, one of my professors played the Rite of Spring on the piano, right? And when you play the Rite of Spring on a piano, it pretty much sounds like you're hitting it with a octave-sized hammer, because the notes are all bunched together. They're just clustered. They're so tight, right? But the beauty of what Stravinsky did was he teased out those different timbres, those different pitches, and gave it clarity of what he was trying to say, because it wasn't just all the same timbre, right? So he got different sounds because he was able to stack different parts of the orchestrations on top of each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoy. I appreciate the point of you saying that she's orchestrating timbre as much as anything else. That's important. I think you're right.
Well, we don't
especially when you talk about synthesizers.
Yeah, we don't always think of pitch as frequency. We think of it as just the sound. And so there's kind of pitch frequency, but there's also kind of like timbre frequency too. And so that, like when you're mixing music, you're thinking in terms of timbre frequency, and that's like a combination of those things, that brings that together, brings that to life.
Right. Sure.
Be right back. I just have to flip the laundry real quick.
Okay. Fair.
Don't worry, guys.
Fair. But I think that's a really great disc. It's a good example of her work. And again, she's got just scads of albums. Scads. If you go to her Bandcamp page, I mean, I think that the year that she released this album, she'd already released like 4 albums previous to it.
This one's 2022, right?
What's that again?
This one's 2022 release, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. So the next one I have up on our list to talk about is the new Cure album, Songs of a Lost World. And I know that you had mentioned this one to me too. So why don't you kick off your impressions of this one?
Well, to foremost, usually I was more of a really specific songs from The Cure, like for example, Friday I'm in Love or The Forest, or very specific songs. But I was pretty much 5 years ago, I listened to Disintegration in full. And I was floored with the themes, with the ambience, with the darker tones, but at the same time, it's not very a hopeful album, but a very melancholic one. It was wow, this one, at some point, they need to revisit this kind of thing. And then I listened to I think the newest one at that point from The Cure. I'm trying to remember the name. It was like 20 years ago. I was like, yeah, this is kind of okay. And then they came with this surprise. To me, this is the spiritual successor to Disintegration. And it pretty much, as of last year, immediately made my top 5 albums of that year. It was so... I'm usually not much of a lyric guy. I'm more of a feel, of a vibe, of a melody, of what catches me in, draws me in. And this is one that, even if you don't pay attention to lyrics, you can feel not necessarily like a depressive kind of, but kind of a dour sense, kind of a dour sense of the word, how brooding it is and how thematic it keeps going. And it's one of those things that up until the end, I think it was End Song, the one that the one moment that I was not even paying attention to lyrics and it broke me. I just wept in tears, what the hell was that?
Yeah. I'm not unlike you because my experience with The Cure has been mainly greatest hits. I've never really listened to any of their full albums. I mean, as I've said, Chris, I played in a cover band. We used to play Fascination Street, me and Kristen McCulta back in college, right? So I know some of their songs, but I've never lived with any of their albums, not one of them. So this is the first one, a Cure album that I got. And as you say, the ambience and the atmosphere of the album really like almost got me. And what I think is really fascinating about it too is the way that, in some ways, it's kind of, I hate to say monotonous isn't the right word, but it's entrancing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's mesmerizing. And so, like, that's how like this, the first song alone, which is, again, for me, that song really, like, emotionally affected me, not unlike what you're talking about. But when you look at it, he doesn't even sing for the first 4 minutes of the song.
No,
it's all just that kind of, like, beat and the vibe and that kind of rolling, breathing feel of that opening sequence. And they keep that throughout the album. That same atmosphere holds throughout the album. I was really impressed by that. And also, I thought a lot about Robert Smith as a stylist, right? Because his voice is extremely well preserved in this album, I think. If you're, and I guess I'm no expert, people who are more hardcore Cure fans may take exception with me on that. But for me, the way that I remember his voice is pretty much how it sounds right here. And it's partially because he has such a distinctive style. As long as he's able to execute that style, issues if he has maybe worn parts of his range or whatever else, it's not quite as noticeable. Roger Waters is like this too, right? Roger Waters can sing in a certain style, and as long as he can still croak out some pitches in that style, it'll still be okay. You know what I mean? He's never had a great... We know Brett and I have definitely talked about this a great length before. Like, he doesn't have a great tone or range to his voice, but he's a stylist. And I think that Robert Smith is like that. He's a stylist. He has that kind of like, you know, longing, melancholic feel to his vocals, and he captures that here. And I think it's a really important part of the Cure sound that is a component on this album for sure.
Yeah, I didn't get the Cure for a long time. I mean, I wasn't a fan. Couldn't get into their stuff. And then the Crow came out, the Crow soundtrack, and they had that song Burn on there, and I just, oh my gosh, I fell in love with that song. And it made me see the Robert Smith through a completely different filter. And this just captures that same kind of sound and feel. This was a surprise. I was completely surprised by this album.
Yeah. I mean, I'd heard a couple of good things about it, but I was not expecting, we're talking about the new Cure album, Chris. It blew me away almost immediately. I'm like, wow, this is way better than it has any right to be. You know,
Right,
so I kept on saying last year about that the last Van Halen album. I kept on saying this album is way better than it has any right to be, and I think that's the same case with this one. You know, another thing that I love about this album. Let's say again.
And it was completely unexpected because they haven't released anything in like 16 years beforehand.
Right.
Yeah. And I also really appreciate, I think I talked to Brent about this, that the guitar player now, the official guitar player for The Cure is Reeves Gabriels, who used to play with Tin Machine and David Bowie in the 90s. And so once I hear that, of course, that changes how I listen to the guitars in this album. And so he adds a lot of kind of not technical, but sonic experimentation and edge to this album that if you know to listen for it, I feel like that's where it's coming from, his contributions, you know?
You know, it's really interesting to me because I grew up with The Cure from their very first album, Boys Don't Cry, and listening to whole albums, and it was so different. Love Cats and you know, there were just so many different songs on that they came out with that first, and I really connected with them. And then you get to the Disintegration and Fascination Street, which was a closing song at the club that I went to every night in the 80s that I loved. That was my dance. That was like, I know how to dance to the song. It was always a closing song. And I felt it so profoundly. And this album, I didn't have that reaction. And it makes me wonder, like, when you're in your 20s, you do feel things so powerfully just from hormones. I mean, it's just a basic psychology thing. And so I'm comparing it to that and going like, why don't I feel like that? You know, so hearing you guys talk about it and how much I love The Cure, and I do love the music, but I just didn't connect to it. It makes me really want to go listen to it again under the, you know, just really giving it a fair shot, so to speak. Because I felt like it was really ethereal. Like you said, the 4 minutes start to the one song. It gave me a Cocteau Twins vibe. I don't know if you know who they are, but it just really right on to a lot of their albums.
I have all their albums.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brent's a Cocteau fans.
And I love that. And I loved that about this. But yeah, I'm really glad to hear everything everybody said because it really makes me want to go back and say, what did I miss? You know?
Right, right. Well, and again, I don't have. This is a situation where you have a connection with their material from before, and maybe even a time whenever they did, sounded different than they do now, right?
Yeah, totally.
So for me,
not better. Not better. Don't get me wrong.
No. Yeah,
because they were new.
But for me, like I'm sort of unencumbered by that preconceived idea,
yes.
right? So I can hit this one and not have to compare it. And this is something. I mean, if you came out with a new Rush album, for me, like I could not say, well, it's not moving pictures. I mean,
I know. It's so true how we do that.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah. But it's also like this is also like my whole thing with this showdown thing that I'm trying to do is also give myself a chance to get new music and live with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you think back on that time, like, okay, you talk about how long was it that you were going to the club? Like, what, a year, 6 months?
Yeah, a year and a half, but yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, it's not that long. And the music leaves, like, such a huge impression. I mean, I listened to Yes's Big Generator for probably, like, a year. I remember every note of that album. You know what I mean? And it's harder as you get older. I firmly believe that it just gets more difficult because we become more and more fossilized as we get older in what we listen to, right? So because of that, like I don't have to knock the dust off of this fossil to appreciate this this Cure album because I don't have a preconceived idea about it. But it makes me really curious about going back. I guarantee a Disintegration is going to show up sometime in the next year or two.
That one.
Everybody said, if you like this album, you got to check out Disintegration. So next stop, expect that next fall or the next spring. That'll happen.
I'm going to get Brent to like them before it's all over.
Oh, no, I'm sold now. I'm just saying back in the day, I had it was just an acquired taste, I suppose.
Right
yeah.
on.
Oh, totally get that. Yeah.
Sure. Speaking of acquired taste, let's talk about Dream Theater.
Oh, yeah.
I listened to them all day today. My God.
Their new album, yes. Okay. So, first of all, caveat for me. Dream Theater did not make my middle 12, and it's one of the ones, every time I do this, I have ones that I regret. And I don't regret my decision on this album to let the Opeth go on past it. Because the new Opeth album, I think, is really something super special and phenomenal, right? I really love that album. But I am a little bit regretful that I couldn't find a way to get it back in on the saves. I just ran out of space. So I don't know how I'm going to get this back in. Maybe I'll throw it back in next year or something because I actually really enjoyed this album, and I am a very critical Dream Theater fan. Because for me, it was all about Scenes from a Memory. Because to me, the Scenes from a Memory album, like, that's the pinnacle of their work. Personally, that's my opinion. And they've had other things that have been good, but nothing has really been able to really recapture that for me. They spoiled me with that recording. So I've always been like, I've tried to get into the Dream Theater albums. I enjoy them, and they tend to stay on the shelf. I like them. They tend to stay on the shelf. This one is one that I feel like I need to come back to more. I really actually enjoyed it a lot. Dream Theater also has a tendency sometimes to turn into the riff of the second. If you know, not the riff of the week, but where they'll go from one riff to the next riff to the rest of the rest of this, and it's very linear, and it's hard to hear the continuity between the riffs, right? But when they lean into songwriting, they're unstoppable, right? There's a couple songs on this one that are really like "Bend the Clock" is the one for me. That song "Bend the Clock" is up there with like top songs. The guitar solo in that song is unbelievable. It's fast, but it also is like cohesive, logical, makes sense, and emotive. It's not just a bunch of crazy notes. So the other sort of stipulation I have with this one, I was hesitant on it because I still, even though I think that Mike Portnoy belongs in Dream Theater, right? The drum seat in this album, in Dream Theater, he cultivated his style in the band. And to have not anybody else in that group, in that seat, I'm open to having talent change out in the band. I really very much am. If you hear me talk about Yes, I guarantee you I'm open to that, right? But
Ship of Theseus.
The Ship of Theseus, man. I have a whole thing about that. But Mike Portnoy kind of does belong in Dream Theater. You know, when he goes to other things, it sounds like Dream Theater when he plays in those things. So, but at the same time, I feel like the drummer who is playing in between, Mike Mangiani, is it Mangiani? Mangini, I keep saying it wrong. Mike Mangini kind of got the shaft a little bit. And in some ways, I think he's technically a better drummer than Mike Portnoy. So I think he's more creative. But I don't think he's a better drummer for Dream Theater. You know, it's sort of the David Lee Roth Van Halen issue, right?
Yeah.
Because David Lee Roth, I mean, I love Van Hagar, and I'll arm wrestle anybody about 5150. But I mean, you can't argue with the run of albums that Van Halen had with David Lee Roth. Something about David Lee Roth and Van Halen when they get together, and Eddie Van Halen when they get together, things happen, right? And I think Mike Portnoy does the same thing, sort of in the context of this Dream Theater album.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my spiel on that one.
I have a friend who's a huge Dream Theater person. Like every album, every time one comes out, it's, you know, the biggest thing that happened in her life. And I love that. But when I've listened to him, it's like what you said. Before I felt like it was just, you know, everybody competing for who has the most prowess in the instruments. You know, you're doing drum solos and guitar solos, and I just never really connected with that until this album. And a lot of people, my friends said, because they're back to the old drummer, they're kind of getting back to the old sound. And that's why this one is so different than the other ones. And I just really listened to, number one, you have storytelling. You have a thematic album about sleep, things having to do with sleep and sleepwalking. And I'm not really sure, but, and then you have this Queensryche like concept album where you have this, you know, just incredible pinnacle type song, and then it goes into some kind of like really slow moving, like you can calm down from it, and then it goes back into something major. And I mean, that was just really, I could listen to the whole thing and I didn't turn it off. Like I was like, I want to hear what happens next. And so for me, it was a huge one.
Queensryche is a really good comparison in terms of narrative storytelling, that whole thing. For Dream Theater, this reminded me a lot of Images and Words.
Yes,
structure wise, especially.
Yes, and that's why I think it's a win. Keep going.
No, that's just it. That's it. It just immediately made me think of that album.
Right, the one that for a lot of Dream Theater fans it hooked them. That was my first one.
That was our first one. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was when that when I was living in Austin that year. That was when I got into that album. You and I, you know, dug into it, and this one reminds me very much of that album too, in tone.
Man, that guitar player is incredible.
Yeah, John Petrucci.
They are so tight.
My fingers could never go that fast if I practiced all day long.
Yeah. In my case, mind if I give my 2 cents about it?
Absolutely, please.
In my case, I'm sort of conflicted. I've been a Dream Theater fan, I think, since Scenes from a Memory. Obviously, that album was like their turn changer. They're with a new keyboardist, Jordan Rudess, and they started to grab over their sound. Well, with Mike Portnoy until he left in Black Cloud Silver Linings, it was pivotal to my music appreciation and then seeking out other bands, for example, Liquid Tension and many others. The big caveat that I do have with Parasomnia is I kind of put it in a good news, bad news kind of way. Like, good news, the Black Cloud Silver Linings is back again. The bad news, the Black Clouds and Silver Linings is back again. So it's like, I understand their motive of doing this type of, sorry, the word is a bit charged, a bit safe, like a very safe album. Like, oh, Mike's back. It's very hyped. What are you going to do? Are we going to experiment some more? Are we going to make some really wild, crazy arrangement? Like, no, we're just going to let's keep it off. We're exactly where it got left off, which it kind of disappointed to me a bit about the album, because with Mangini, at least, some of the albums, for example, their first album with Mangini, Dramatic Turn of Events, it's also another album that's very structurally positioned as an Images and Words, like kind of a structure kind of a thing. But they did some crazy experiments, right? For better or for worse, like The Astonishing, which is an album that many Dream Theater fans kind of hate, but I love it because at least they kind of try to bring in new stuff. But that album kind of, I don't want to say broke the band, broke the band, but in a bad way. Like, oh, let's try to keep it totally down, totally safe, and they returned like to a very usual, like laid back. Oh yeah, we're gonna try to do it by the numbers that like. When you get to an album, when the inspiration of the album is yourselves, it kind of gets very samey. And when, of course, Portnoy come back out, like, whoa, maybe in arrangements, he's going to be from all of the things he learned in the past 10 years off the band. He's going to make like very more engaging kind of a thing. And in my case, it was like, yeah, this sounds like exactly Black Cloud Silver Linings Part 2, which is kind of the thing that threw me off. I do have to say, for example, on Shadow Man Incident, which, well, of course, they're long, epic kind of a song. The first 2/3 of it kind of bore me until they get to the Latin jazz kind of a something they haven't done in that way before. But against that, Bend the Clock to me is their most interesting one because it's more of a ballady kind of a such a way, because the other Night Terror, Broken Man, like very much Dream Theater by the numbers, which I am a huge fan of, but I wish they could have been a lot more crazier. Hopefully, with the next one, they kind of be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other, and I totally see your point. I think a lot of the things that I had said about this is like, the good news is Dream Theater's back. The bad news is Dream Theater's back.
Dream Theater's back.
I mean, and it's as you say, for folks who are fans of Dream Theater, it's very satisfactory, but it doesn't break a whole lot of new ground as far as they go.
Yeah, for example, from memory, which it broke the mold.
That's again, that one not only broke the mold for Dream Theater on me, but kind of broke me on prog metal in general. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of felt like once that album happened, Dream Theater really was about to almost become something else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Not even prog metal, become a whole different thing. And then they kind of settled back into this prog metal thing and got there, and that's where they kind of still are. You know,
that's what I read a lot about this album, was that it was back to prog, and that before, they were moving away from that, and everybody was so excited that they came back and like they were doing prog rock again. So I don't know, but that's what a lot of people said about it.
Mm-hmm. I also want to give a shout out, as you say, to the keyboard player, man. Derek, I think that Derek is the secret weapon in that group. And we talk a lot about the guitar player, but keep in mind, 9 times out of 10, the keyboard player is doubling the guitar player on everything he plays. I mean, when he plays solos in there, it's not 2 guitar players. He's not always, I mean, he might be double tracking it, but live, if you watch him do it, like those lines are all being doubled by the keyboard player. And what I love about him is that he's a guy that innovates with contemporary keyboards in the same way we kind of talk about Jean-Michel Jarre, and those guys, or really Rick Wakeman would be a better allegory, experimenting with keyboards in the 70s. They were trying to get new keyboard technology and see what it could do. Derek is constantly doing bizarre new stuff with keyboards. Like, if you watch any of his stuff,
Derek's the previous keyboardist. Jordan.
I'm sorry, did I say it wrong?
Yeah, don't worry.
It's not Derek. I'm blanking.
Derek Sherinian was the one before Scenes from Memory.
Yeah, but I'm blanking on the name now.
Yeah, Jordan Rudess.
Jordan Rudess, excuse me, Jordan Rudess. Yeah, sorry, I just blanked out for a second. But Jordan Rudess, he does really, really innovative stuff with contemporary keyboards. That's fascinating to me, and that pushes the envelope in the same way that the great 70s guys did with contemporary technology. So he's kind of got my, extra bump in my respect for that too. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we still call it progressive? It's been around for 50 years.
Oh, that's a large topic.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I do want to mention just like one. Yeah, don't worry, Brent. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying a can of worms.
Yeah, it's a can of worms.
Definitely. Here's another can of worms which I'm actually a bit worried about too. As you said, Jordan also bringing back a lot of more things, and he's more into, for example, from the rest of the band, more into the experimentation and more on the AI side of stuff. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that kind of bothered me, for example, I pre-ordered it a long time ago. It's a large booklet. It's very detailed, but you kind of notice that you as a Rush fan, Hugh Syme did amazing kind of work back in the 80s or in the 90s. But lately in the 2000s, 2010s, he kind of gets more in like the stock material. Let's put in things together. And let's ship the artwork like that. And it can kind of awkwardy. But on this one, I think it took into a moment where he starts to incorporate artificial intelligence into it. And it looks very off-putting. in a way. So I mean, it's nothing against the music, but it's more like Hugh Symes like getting really kind of very into the artificial intelligence part of the way.
I really worry about what AI is going to do to the arts.
That's another very large topic.
Sorry.
No. Well, but here's the thing, and I know Barbara and I have talked quite a bit about AI and stuff, and in my posts I use a lot of AI stuff, but it's for me it's about like not about the generating the content as much as just sort of like polishing the aesthetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't let AI come in and like write all my stuff that I'm saying, but like I want to make a little 30-second video clip because otherwise I'm just going to show a album cover. That's no fun. So, and since the beginning of my videos, you've seen like I used to do things with editing. I used to do things with different kinds of videos for visualization. So it's sort of a natural progression for me to do that. But as you say, like as I'm doing that, am I putting graphics artists out of work by not hiring somebody to do that? Maybe, it's conflicting sometimes. I get that.
Yeah. For me, writing with AI, I write the lyrics and then I might use ChatGPT to say, or I won't write poetry. I say, how do I turn this poem into lyrics, into a song that I can put music to? And then I'll tell it what I want the song to sound like, and I'll tweak the crap out of it after it writes it down to, I want this verse to sound different. I want the music to do this. I want to hold the, guitar note longer. And yet I feel like, can I take credit for the song?
Right.
I didn't write the melody for sure. I love the melody. I picked the melody out of 5 different choices, but I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, there's two interesting things there. One, Billy Corrigan talked a little while back about this, where we start talking about AI arts stuff, it's less about musical skill and more about discernment, right? I may not be able to play guitar great, but if I listen to 6 different versions of the same guitar thing, I can pick out the one that really makes the most sense to me, right? And there's something to be said about that level of artistic, I guess instincts, I guess. And the other thing about it is that a couple of years ago, there's an artist named Holly Herndon, who's an electronic artist who I really like. And she was starting to do stuff with AI 5 or 6 years ago in her albums. And she always talked about doing things in collaboration with AI. And I think that's kind of the stance you should take on it, right? When you do stuff with AI, it's a collaborative thing. AI may tell me to do something. I can say, no, I don't think so, but I like this one thing, And as I told some of the last video I put up, a little video clip, I made like 24 10-second videos. And out of those 24 10-second videos, I got about 5 seconds worth of good stuff, So there's that to be, and that's going to change, right? As we get further into this and get more generation out of it and get more realism out of it and more control over the images, that will change. But it is interesting my personal stance on it is that to treat it like a collaborative relationship over a, AI spitting a song out for me and me just doing it.
I can say that this is impacting the writing community.
I know for sure it's getting
also.
you.
Yeah, big time.
It's impacting
used properly. It can really help, but used properly, it's a tool.
You can't copyright the AI parts of it. You have to put it in a box that says this is what AI did.
Right.
This is what I did. And I like that. It feels truthful. It feels like a collaboration, like you said.
Well, I think the thing that the question really is what makes a composition? What makes something composed? Because Barbara, you're saying you're choosing a few from several melodies, right?
Yes.
So what if you programmed, create as all the possible melodies from these 5 notes, and then you picked the one? That's the same as sitting there doing it at the piano.
Yeah.
And so now you're taking it a level further. You're getting, so at what point are you activated as a composer?
Right.
It's kind of the bigger question.
Well, the same with the lyrics. I mean, we used to go to the rhyming dictionary and go, what rhymes with this, and it was awful. But now I say, what's a word that means, something simple that you want it to sound more sophisticated. And we have the internet for that, So I don't know. It's different, but I like it. I like the possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that, like Brent, you're talking about from a writing standpoint. I mean, I've been teaching classes now for a while that have a writing component, and on the one hand, I don't want somebody to hand me something that's all just AI generated, but at the same time, I very often when I'm writing something, I'll let AI create a first draft for me. I just treat it like it's a first draft. Because then I'll get through it and go, no, 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 no. But I like how it's saying this, you know. So, as you say, it's a different kind of thing, and there's a certain amount of what's the word, grit that you lose by going that way, right? You don't have to stare at a blank page for an hour and a half to figure what you're going to start with, and there's something about that kind of sucks.
That's a fair point.
Because most of the time, whenever you have to write anything, you have to sit there and just go, where do I even start?
It can certainly help with writer's block. Yes.
Yeah, it's a jump start sometimes. So anyway, clearly that's a whole separate conversation, but it's one that permeates. If you talk about the arts, especially, it permeates everything. And I think we should all, in all respects, be looking at like how we're going to relate to it as we go forward, and how we're going to accept that relationship from generations that come up behind us.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something inherently not AI. This Noah Kahan album that's next up. And Barbara, I wanted you were the one actually. So if you are a subscriber on my Patreon, you get a automatic album inserted into the listing, and this is Barbara's insertion for this year. She suggested this one. It's been a good one. It's got a lot of legs. I ended up choosing Brendan Burns for it in the first round, just because that Brendan Burns microtonal stuff really like blew my mind. But
Earth 1 and 2.
No, I'm sorry. I got to take my dog out. I'll be back.
Okay, right on.
Okay.
But there's a lot to the Noah Kahan album that I still haven't uncovered because I kind of chose it early. So talk to us about this album and your decision to add it to the mix.
Yeah, so I came across this album in a Spotify playlist called Pumpkin Spice. And they had all these fall sounding songs that were acoustic and folksy. But when they played the Stick Season, I was, for one thing, you don't have a lot of bands that have that bluegrass kind of feel. Like we did one last year that I
Nickel
loved.
Creek.
Yeah, Nickel Creek is great. So immediately I went, okay, Nickel Creek, and also that other band that everybody, the Lumineers, it kind of Lumineers kind of a sound, but it's folk, but it's different, and it's very introspective, and it's very specific about loving Vermont, and every song on it is just so well written, just like poetry. I mean, the guy's a poet, and his singing style is so good, and his guitar playing is so good. And now everyone is wanting to either, like on The Voice, there's always someone that does the Noah Kahan song. Like everybody wants to imitate him, and a lot of people are starting to imitate his style. And he's just kind of he reminds me a lot of James Blunt, actually, only I wouldn't listen to the whole James Blunt album. This I can't turn off when it's on. And when I feel like that about an album, I'm like, oh, I got to go tell Jeff about this because it's like, to me, really, really good. So that was my take.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For me, I think that you had said this too. I'm a music guy first, and usually lyrics kind of come to me second, right? This one, lyrics got me a little bit quicker though. Like I really heard like he's really marrying these lyrics or these songs in a special way. And I, fortunately, because it's a tier 1 album that got that shows the other one, this is going to come back for me in tier 5. So I will see this again when we get back to the next tier, and I'm going to come back around it, which I'm really eager to reframe it a little bit based on y'all's opinions on it.
What's really interesting, this is like his 5th album, so it's not his first album. But when I hear somebody so distinct and different from everyone else that I listen to, it really gives me I'm kind of impressed by his just, I sound like this and I write like this, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to just do a whole album, and, who cares what happens, and I'm going to do it 5 times, like it's bold.
Yes. And he has a clarity of vision That's
Yes.
really compelling. Like these super consistent, and he knows exactly what he's going. I made that note too. He's got great lyrics and he's got
Yeah.
great coherency of vision.
Thank you. That
Mhm.
is a good way to put it. Yeah.
I was actually quite surprised because this is an album that I've never been like very like seeking kind of a folky kind of a vibe. Well, in my case, I do notice a very Americana kind of a Appalachian
Yeah.
kind of a vibe, kind of a folky. Then looking into the artist is more of a Vermont or more in the northeastern part of the area. What I was actually mostly surprised, like, whoa, when I was checking out on Spotify, like his song Six Seasons has like 1.5 billion
I'm telling you.
listens, and it's like this is an album from 2 years ago, but
Mhm.
3 years ago.
Oh, so interestingly, here's what he's doing. So in 2022, he put out Stick Season. In 2023, he put out Stick Season Forever or something like that.
Mhm.
And he added like 8 songs. And then last year, he did Stick Season Forever to the
Forever.
End or something like that. And now it has 31 songs, but it's always with the same first. Now it's the second album was 21. So I think there was 14 on the first. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just find that such an nobody's ever really kind of done that.
Just continue to add to the album. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And so I thought that was really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, but in my case, it's kind of interesting because that one, because it was such a more of a folky, more not to say it in a bad way, but not like in a proggy, more very actively in your face. Listen to me. You had to pay attention to lyrics, and most of them, it was like trying to grab very nostalgic feelings of a place I've never been. So I wasn't like kind of grabbing into a sort of way, with the exception of one track, "Strawberry Wine," which is it was the one that told me, yes, I understand. I do not understand the rest of the tracks that kind of grab you that sort of way, but that one was like the biggest highlight.
And
Mhm.
and I had an opposite because I mean I'm probably just not as astute as you are about music, but when I first listened to the whole thing, I was just like hanging out with a, coffee in my hand, doing stuff around the house, and it just felt like I was just really connecting to the music and not really listening to the lyrics because it was pleasant and it was catchy, and the choruses were catchy and I was just really enjoying kind of the ambiance of listening to something so different from what we normally listen to. But then, when I listened to it the second time and I really started listening to the words, I was like, this is so different and so amazing and so poetic.
Mhm.
He's one of those to me that could be like a Bob Dylan that like, posts all of his music and then some as a poetry book.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and this is another one too. I'm eager to come back to because I do live in Appalachia now, right? So it's the same thing happened to me with Nickel Creek. Like I'm driving around in my car, and when I was living in Austin, like there were certain things that what would listen to that remind me of my surroundings, right? And sometimes when I come up here and I listen to like Death Grips, and I'm driving through the mountains, I'm like, this doesn't seem to quite fit. But that does. I'm driving around and it feels like the surroundings. It feels like you can sense that it's inspired by from that environment, for lack of a better term. Yeah. Cool. Next up, then we have Meer. Meer's Wheels Within Wheels, and I know, like, yeah, I see you going for that one. Um,
Actually, that one I don't have. What I
oh
do
yeah,
have is their previous album.
nice. I haven't heard that one yet.
I love them. I love them
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. Now this is one for me. Actually got bumped off my final list by The Cure. That was a tough one. Oddly, with me for this Meer album, I had this weird first impression of it when I very first listened to it at the beginning of the year that I just didn't really like it. Something about it didn't really sit right with me. But man, it got so much momentum all through the year. Like, it has so many amazing high points. There's a couple spots in there where the melodrama takes over, and I think that's the part where I have a little bit of a thing with it. My one little, I don't know, dent in the armor. But what I like about them so much is that they are clearly a progressive rock band, but try to point to exactly who they're referring to, and it's a little bit tricky. Like they don't sound like Yes or Genesis or King Crimson, any of those big three guys. They're not retro, right? But they're clearly like symphonic type prog, orchestral. I would actually almost argue because they really have a lot of incorporated like strings and that sort of chamber music with them. But man, there's some really fantastic arrangements on there of their songs, and there's several live videos of them doing these pieces extremely well with that full setting. The orchestrations, the strings are not an add-on. Like they are integrated into these songs. It's like part of being in Meer is having a 4-piece string section. Is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that I really, really love about this album. It's another one of those ones that I'm a little frustrated and get to save it. Just ran out of space for it, but I'm glad that it's represented on y'all's list for sure.
Yeah. This is my first time. I mean, you probably have had one in a previous year that I've listened to.
This is new for Meer. Was brand new for me this year.
Okay. Yeah, then it is the first time, and yeah, just the prog rock got me. Like I just feeling like I love that. I love, and you're right. It wasn't like Genesis or Peter Gabriel or anything that I had really listened to before, but it was just good. You know.
You want to know, in my case, which is the band that closely resembles to it, even though it doesn't sound at all musically related to it? Godspeed You, Black Emperor.
That's interesting.
Not as the way, because Godspeed You has a lot of very political implications or very dark and very brutish kind of thing. But Meer, specifically that album, has one of the things that are building up. I don't know if you've noticed for example, in jam sessions, like with jam bands like Humphreys McGee or even Grateful Dead or stuff like that, the song itself in the studio versions, it's more of a template, but they go like build and build upon it and build upon it and build upon it and build upon it until it reaches a certain kind of crescendo. But in the case of Meer, it's mostly it kind of grows, then beyond again with the next song kind of grows. That it kind of takes you into that type of I don't know if I call it traveling music or more of how should I say it? Like they are masterful builders in that craft. Especially thinking about it's a very young 8-piece band. Well, 7-piece, because I think one of the members got big in a very specific thing in Norway, and they're back into a 7-piece. But yeah, definitely one of my top albums in the last year in 2024. And yes, I know the comparison is kind of weird, but it's more of that like crescendo kind of build. Another one that is also locally, I don't know if you've checked them out, Major Parkinson, but they're more theater based. Maybe on the next tier, I would suggest it or something.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that, but I can kind of see what you're saying with that, to be honest, because, Godspeed Your Black Emperor, they have that jammy component, but I think the difference is that Meer composes it, right? They write that stuff into their pieces. I think it's intentional. It's written to hit those peaks and valleys, but they definitely do. They play with dynamics for sure. You can't argue that. And I think that's, again, when you see more of that in music in general, a lot of the stuff you hear is just think about like so much pop music and stuff you hear these days, all just one volume, beginning. You can even see it in the waveforms, just like big old block of sound. And to have groups that play with those dynamics that way, it's a crucial musical tool that I think gets overlooked for the sake of just being loud.
Yeah.
And Meer definitely doesn't fall into that trap. Yeah. Okay, the next up I got the Missing Persons album, the Spring Session M. Let's talk about this one. This is interesting to me. For me, actually, I had to save Missing Persons. They got beat up by Clipping in Tier 3, just because I freaking love Clipping, and that's another one of those groups that he gets me. It hits me in the chest whenever I listen to that Clipping album. But happy to save it because, again, on the one side, it's interesting that the Missing Persons is made up of all Zappa alumni, all of them, with the exception of one keyboard player, and he went on to do soundtrack work. They're all heavies.
Chuck Wild, was it?
Yeah. He went on to do he was not associated with Zappa, but he ended up going on and having a whole musical career, on the other side of things. And he was just like the second keyboard player for the Missing Persons. The songwriting side of this is really interesting because they're clearly trying super hard to write pop songs, right? I mean, if you listen to the choruses of these songs, which is the thing I kind of held against them a little bit, the choruses, I challenge you to listen to any of their songs and not hear the name of the song repeated at least twice every chorus, at least. Sometimes 6, 7 times, you know what I mean? I mean, the song Walking in L.A., the whole chorus is just walking in L.A., walking in L.A. Guess what? Everybody walks in L.A. Walking in LA. I mean, and that's
And then
pop
she's got to
standard.
do that pop thing with her voice.
Yeah, the little chirpy thing. Yeah.
Chirp,
What are words for? What are words for? So like they're really pushing hard to make a hook for each song. And new wave and post punk made that okay. It's fine, But in the context of their songwriting, it's one of those things that once you kind of hear it, it's hard for me to unhear it. But the playing, man, the playing on these albums is so rife with crazy, subtle musicianship that you just have to uncover it. Terry Bozzio went on to really be obsessed with the idea of the melodic value of the drum set. If you ever watch his current stuff, he's got like 3 octaves of toms and 3 octaves of cymbals and 7 bass drums all tuned. And he always says, but even if you listen to this back in Zappa, he used to play drum solos that clearly had a melodic intention behind them. But then you listen to this album and you realize like he's constructing his guitar parts based on what he's constructing his drum parts based on what Warren Crucarulo is doing on guitar, not standard drum stuff. Right? There's that song, U.S. Drag.
U.S. Drag.
U.S. Drag, right? The drum part on that is really kind of bizarre and weird, but he's basing everything off of this guitar group. Ba ba bum 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 ding, ba ba bum bum, that kind of guitar group. His whole beat is playing off of that, as opposed to playing straight drum set stuff. But if he followed that too closely, it would be a little bit too experimental, right? He's very cool about how he masks that experimentalism within the boundaries of that post-punk new wave sound. All those guys, though. I mean, all those guys are brilliant players. And once you start pulling the layers off of it, and like looking under the hood, there's a lot of really unbelievable musicianship that happens on that album.
Can never think of Terry Bozzio, and you know what I'm going to say, Jeff. Can never. I always think of Baby Snakes and him and his tidy whities and him grabbing the microphone and singing with one hand and he's playing drums one-handed.
You don't like this up at the microphone and face the like this. Yeah.
Is that like an MTV video?
It's a Frank Zappa Baby Snakes. It's a long form video where I know I can see you looking for it back there. Baby Snakes was the Frank Zappa album that made me get Frank Zappa. I'd been listening to him for a while, right? That's it. But I saw that video and I was like, ding, and Terry Bozzio and Adrian Blue's on this album. It's Adrian Blue's first gig, along with Terry Bozzio. Patrick O'Hearn's the bass player. He would go on to play with Missing Persons. And for me, that was the one that made me understand like kind of what Frank Zappa did, what he was about, right? And so what we're hearing is there's a part in there where Terry Bozzio always really wanted to be the lead singer. Right, he always really wanted to be a front man, but he also didn't want to give up playing drums, like some people, Phil Collins. So, excuse me, chicken bone. Excuse me. So there's this part in the video where he's singing lead from the back, and he goes off. It's unbelievable, and he's playing with one hand, grabbing the microphone, and just screaming into the camera.
And he's barefoot. He's only wearing tidy whities. Yeah,
he's wearing as much as you remember what the guy from Def Leppard used to wear before he lost his arm? He's just wearing like a pair of like boxers with the Union Jack on it. That's about what Terry Bozzio looked like. That's all he had on him. And he's back there wailing. So anyway, there's actually the referring to Baby Snakes is actually kind of a good because a lot of the relationship that was built in that group was what came to fruition in the Missing Persons later on.
Yeah, instrumentally speaking. I would put them in a way of, because before that, Bozzio was in UK, if I remember correctly. So he was trying to like grab all his chops, but simplifying them down and seeing bands like Asia hitting on that note. Yes, I think later after in 91-25.
Yeah.
And the only slight annoyance that I do have with Spring Session M is that they rely too much on, let me call it the Police isms. So it kind of sounds like a very simplified version of the Police in some moments.
Yeah. There was, I think you're right. There's an intention to capture that really unique Police chemistry. Nobody could do the Police except for the Police.
Exactly.
Nobody
But I
really
do
did.
have to I do have to notice that Warren Kukurula's guitar sound is amazing throughout that album.
He
Very
shines in
punchy,
this
very
album.
in your face.
Yeah, I think he really shines in this album, even more so I think than he did with his later work with Duran Duran. I know Brent and I have talked about this. He did great work with Duran Duran later on when he took over that slot, but he really, like, if you really want to see what Cucurullo's capable of, I think he's very audible on this album. The kind of style that he has, you can see it laid bare. And then it's easier for me to hear it later on in the Duran Duran stuff because I can hear it, what really he's about as a player.
Love Duran Duran.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, I gotta jump off and go pick up my girlies at 10:30.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Chris.
Guys, and hear your opinions about
Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks,
really
Chris.
awesome.
Thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Cool.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Yeah, I can't stay on too much longer either. Just FYI. So
all right, let's get to cranking.
We got 4
We need
left.
to crack out the speed a bit.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this Prince controversy album then.
Boy,
I think
controversy.
that some people are afraid to vote against Prince because he's going to come back and get them from the grave. That's what people like. People like, oh man, I didn't want to vote against Prince, man. Like he doesn't. It's okay. He's not going to come and get you. It's fine.
You know, it really is the start, and maybe some of his other previous albums too. But you can really see his style that he has for Purple Rain just completely on this album.
100%.
And he's another one that is so bold and so different and so like, this is it. I'm not going to change. This is what you get. And it's so different. Like, I kind of love that.
He includes the Lord's Prayer on it.
Uh-huh.
Well, he also does some other things.
I mean, he's a very spiritual person, but in a very interesting way.
Right. Well, my issue, because I didn't actually, the David Gilmour album got my attention over this one, actually, back in Tier 1. So it's going to come back. Okay, I'll see it again in Tier 5, although it's not going to help me. I think it's going to be a problem. But he really leans into this controversy concept on this album, almost to the point of distraction.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. And look, he's trying to get attention for himself. He understands that the more controversial that he is, the more press that he gets, the more it's going to help him big picture. And you're also right, because if you look at the way that Prince reinvented himself, his persona from one album to the next, the persona that he had between Controversy and Purple Rain is almost the same.
Yes.
It's almost like a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Purple Rain prequel.
That's how I felt.
This was his third album.
Right.
He was only 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And this predates like 1999 and the big hits. You know, I mean, this kind of started to move him onto the map.
Right.
I mean, he had done work before this, but this really was kind of a pivot point for him.
He's such a masterful guitar player, and I didn't realize that until I saw him play with. There's this video that's out there of George Harrison's son.
Yeah.
And,
where he throws the guitar in the air and just disappears. How do you do that? You see that at the end of that video? He plays the guitar, he's playing, and he just throws the guitar up in the air and walks away. And nobody really knows what happened to the guitar.
Oh my God.
It never lands anywhere. It just like disappears. Poof. It's a very Prince thing to do.
Yeah, that sounds so Prince-like.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you go back to Purple Rain and you see him playing the leads on those songs and go, yeah.
Right.
I mean, how do you not appreciate that then?
He played everything just amazingly. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you're right. I think you're right that this album starts the arc that kind of doesn't end until like Sign of the Times.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then once you get past when he kind of renamed himself, he started kind of started changing things up in the mid-90s. Things got a little bit different, but certainly like I think this is Prince announcing like what the next chunk of his career is going to look like for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, while he was doing this, he was writing music right and left for other artists.
Yes.
You know, I mean the Bangles, Sinead O'Connor, Celine Dion. He was writing. You know, he would write a song. Go here, I wrote this for you. And it would be amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah.
The chink in the armor on this one was the song Annie Christian. That's sort of his weird punk rocky song, where it's sort of like I don't know. He really, again, leans into the controversy thing there and makes all these sort of anti-religious references, even though we know he's not. He's, again, just
pushing.
He's just stirring the pot. I mean,
stirring the pot. He's stirring the pot. That's it.
Pretty much that was that was like the point of trying to do that album and why he centered around it. In my case, I'm not very familiar with Prince. I do appreciate his more later work with 1999 or with Purple Rain. But in that case, I just found it like a very interesting experiment where he's trying to do most of the things, especially on the electronic drum sounds and the things that the Minneapolis sound he basically made. But in the end, there wasn't like very much like in my case I could like grab onto. The only thing that I think I had written down is this album is horny as hell.
Yeah.
Welcome to Prince.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. At this point, he hadn't really figured out how to navigate to embed those ideas in there, but hadn't navigated the subtlety yet.
Right.
You know, and so that for me is a little bit distracting on this album, personally. Yeah. Even though the songs are killer, and it's a fascinating document of where Prince was about to go.
Yeah, it's a young work.
Yeah, he's a young, absolutely. All right, next up is the Soft Machine Bundles album. Soft Machine Bundles was my connection with this one was that I've kind of been on an Alan Holdsworth jag last couple of years. And so I'm familiar with the stuff in the 80s. Last year we looked at Metal Fatigue in our stuff. So I was going on the other side, and this is one of the earliest performances I could find from him is on the Soft Machine album. Very young Alan Holdsworth on this one. And what I found was, it's really crazy that he was able to capture his sound so early on. I mean, even as a young player, it's like, oh, that's Holdsworth. Sounds like Alan Holdsworth, you know. His technique is ridiculous. His tone quality is, unmistakable to the point where I hear this and I listen. My connection with Alan Holdsworth has always been Bill Bruford's work, like the Master Strokes work, right? So I'm like, this sounds like Bill Bruford to me, even though it doesn't really sound like, those pieces from that Master Strokes album. But his sound is so distinctive that it pulls everything else in, and he's one of those guys. Soft Machines like this. They're too jazz to be rock, too rock to be jazz. And that has been like Alan Holdsworth's lane during his entire career. Was the kind of not quite prog, not quite jazz, but somewhere in between the two.
Was he ever a studio musician?
I believe so. Yeah. I wish I knew better. I need to know his history better before I comment on that, but I'm sure he has been.
I don't know. I feel like I read that somewhere, but yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of in a way, because I'm more familiar with their first albums with Sound Machine is like more kind of a laid back, but kind of very experimentalish, kind of a prog, but not prog really. Right. On this one, it felt more of a like, oh, look what Mahavishnu, look what they're kind of trying to do. So they lean on a bit more on the jazz fusion-y rock side of things. But to me, the highlight of that album was the more interlude bits that Holdsworth like trying to spread out to put more of his ding into that sort of a jamming sort of a way.
I agree. He's one of the most. And again, I don't know. Soft Machine's back catalog is something I need to crack open. I don't know their stuff super well, but I do think that
I recommend the most.
The third, I know it's been on my wish list for like 17 years now. I've got to get it to happen. But I think that he is one of the most fascinating things about this recording. And people who are Soft Machine fans are like, oh well, that's kind of an okay album, but Holdsworth is great. And that's my take on it too, for sure.
Yeah.
And this is one that for me, I will come back. I eliminated in tier 1, but it's going to come back next in the spring for me again, in the fall, I should say, because it's one that just needs more baking in my head. There's a lot of notes.
Me too.
But they're great. It's great.
That was my impression. I knew I liked it, but I didn't really have time to dig into it like I've done some of the others, and so I really wanted to do that. It's
a lot. Big hunk of cheese for sure. Okay, speaking of, we were talking a little bit at the very beginning about nostalgia, and so let's talk about this Time Cop 1983 album. Because whenever I very first structured everything at the beginning of the year, I had one post that was 80s adjacent albums, right? Of those 4 that I put in that post, 3 of them made it to the finals. 3 of the 4, right? It was the Cure album. It was this album, and what was the other one?
Missing Persons, maybe.
Missing Persons, I think, was the other one. Those three, yeah. And the fourth one wasn't really an '80s album. It was Clarence Clarity, and that one didn't go very far because it really wasn't super '80s. But it's interesting that this one we kind of talked about these older albums, the nostalgia attached with it, and then still this is a more recent album, but it's one that's really tapped into nostalgia, especially for those of us that are of that generation. I mean, like, it's you can't listen to this and not kind of feel like you're at a pizza joint playing a video game, putting quarters in a video game backlit with the Tron soundtrack on or something. It captures that so well.
It's kind of more 80s than 80s,
and that's
everybody. Yeah, exactly. People think of neon and all that, and it's like, no, our houses were dark wood and shag carpet.
Yeah, agreed. That's nostalgia, right? Nostalgia is an idealized past that may have never actually existed.
Yes,
that's like the soundtrack to my life in the 80s. Like it would have been playing in the background while somebody was narrating what I was doing or something,
Right. Yeah. And this is entirely the point of this and synthwave in general, right? Mm-hmm. My take on this one is that I kind of have gotten into some other synthwave albums that do what this album does, but a little bit better. I think they actually and I think they came after this one too. So you're talking about a guy that was kind of starting off the synthwave movement, but people have improved on it since then. I think. So like Gunship. For me, Gunship is like the standard bearer for killer synthwave. And what was the other one?
TWRP.
Which one?
TWRP, if you haven't checked them out. They hone in that 80s nostalgia vibe.
That will be worth checking out then.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I love this album. It didn't get past Death's Dynamic Shroud for me. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really. What's that?
That would be a hard one to get past.
That was a tough one. But I do love this the synthwave stuff. And again, as a person who I kind of have a vested interest in nostalgia and manipulation of nostalgia, I mean, this is a ground zero for that. Mm-hmm. Does a synthwave album have the same effect on somebody who's born in 2010? Right.
Yeah.
Does it remind them of the 80s? Because they don't know what the 80s were like.
Right.
Mm-hmm. In my case, I'm from 87 and I do not remember that specifically.
Right. So these are the things I don't have an answer for. I just think they're interesting things to think about because a lot of people who do synthwave music aren't even people who were around in the 80s. Right. They go back and listen to recordings and try to recapture it as outside observers. And for those of us that, do it well, that were there, there's a lot of people that nail it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting. And even I feel like I've changed since I started this group with you because in the beginning, I had different reasons for wanting, when it was a really hard pick, for wanting one thing over another. Nostalgia might have played into it a lot. And it may have been, that maybe the album wasn't great, but it's Pink Floyd. I mean, how can you not vote for Pink Floyd, like you said? Mm-hmm. And now I really feel like I'm more understanding my own likes and my own, like, yeah, it's Prince, but, or, how I didn't bond with this particular Cure album, things like that. And I can own it, Right. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to you that, that's been really helpful for my life and things. So
there's a reflective aspect of it for me too, so I appreciate that. And for me, again, it's just about trying to give everything a fair shake, whether it's your favorite album from, again, if somebody asked me to do something like this and they put Power Windows up, I probably wouldn't even give the other album a second look.
You couldn't even listen to it, right? Even
I couldn't.
Yeah.
If I felt like I chose that album, I'd feel like I was betraying Power Windows. You know what I mean?
Peart would come back from the grave.
He would come back. No, I'm not afraid of Prince, but I'm afraid of Neil Peart. Neil Peart does not approve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you guys ever checked out this movie? I think Ryan Gosling is it called Drive?
Yes, and I think the video that that was put together for the song that I posted comes from that movie.
Exactly. That outrun-ish kind of a vibe is to me that album was from all the 12 the one that I liked the least, but I do understand in what specific moments it will work, and definitely it works on a night drive.
Yeah.
Put it in the background.
I love that.
Yeah. One left, guys. One left.
All right.
XTC's Black Sea. Here it comes. I see it back there. Are you old school XTC person?
Not much of an old school, because I think I got into them like 10 years ago. I was like randomly selecting playlists and then fell over into the greatest hits album. I think it was called Fossil Fuel or something.
Okay.
And it has amazing songs. And then I deep dive into those. To me, this album I could consider, if I had an analogous like to the Beatles, this is their Rubber Soul. Because that was the moment where the band were kind of trying to experiment towards any other stuff that isn't necessarily new wave, but they haven't hit that stride yet. And coincidentally, it was the last album that they kind of toured, because after that they pretty much stopped touring altogether, and then concentrated on doing more studio kind of endeavors.
Right. For me, like, this is when the songwriting that they would really refine in the studio started to really take off. They had lots of really great songs in their earlier albums, but this is the one where things I think really got intricate. But it was still, as you say, clearly they had a live chemistry that they had generated between the four of them. And I think that's captured really well in this album. So, later on they would go on and do these really ornate pop things, and they'd be awesome, but they don't have that same energy. This album, like, especially the early stuff, XTC, you could almost equate to like Devo. Right? It's almost got that same level of angularity to it that early stuff has. And I think that this one captures that energetic, almost punk rock angularity, but with the songwriting that they would soon really, take off on and be defined by as they went to the studio later.
That's what was really interesting about when that album, or just XTC in general, I don't know if that album was out, but there was a point in the 80s where half of my friends started doing punk rock and going to mosh pits and all of the things that I was not going to do. XTC was a big part of what they listened to. So for me, and I don't even know if it is punk. I don't think you could. It's more Joe Jackson to me, like Joe Jackson vibe there. And I loved Joe Jackson at the time, but because I associated in my mind with that separation, it's like I can't like that album. I don't know why. It's
interesting.
It's just weird.
For me, my hook for XTC was a band called Chomsky. You remember, probably, Robert, you maybe saw Chomsky back in the day up in Denton. This band up in Denton we used to watch. And they were one of my favorite bands, and I didn't know anything about XTC when I saw them. And so friends of mine were like, they're just kind of reworking XTC stuff. That's their basis of their style. So I would get some of their more, ornate. I went and got Skylarking. Well, Skylarking didn't sound like Chomsky. It was way too florid, So I'm just now getting to the phase where I'm looking. So this is the stuff that we're talking about. This is the almost like live, as you say, it could be a mosh pit, right? It's got that kind of energy to it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because I like that.
It predates mosh, doesn't it?
Say again?
Yeah.
I said it predates mosh, doesn't it? I mean, 1980. I don't think anybody was moshing in 1980.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
It's just the album they listened to, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was an older album. Maybe because it had the same vibe,
Yeah, it had the potential for that, I think.
But so many people were influenced by this album. So many artists that makes me really want to dig into it. And I was kind of back up, I feel like I'm so negative on this time, but I'm not at all. Like, I think it's intriguing that this is my past and that I had this reaction. And now I'm like, now that I know so many people benefited from it, I really want to listen to it and understand it more.
Yeah.
So
it's also interesting to me. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, there's an album that kind of reminds me of the similarities that it has, that it's in this list. It's the Fleetwood Mac album, because this is their album, from my perspective, that it was before they got like to their big studio-oriented, big heavyweight sound. Because before, if this is the album that, like, in the same way as Fleetwood Mac, they released Rumors afterwards. This one they released the one that's English Settlement, which is to me their top tier album.
Yeah, English Settlement's awesome. That again is one. That's where they really start to settle into their studio sound. But that's actually still very energetic, still very edgy album.
Yeah. Well, it's like Prince too. We've talked about that he was cementing his sound. So it seems to be like kind of a common theme we're doing this year in a way.
The album before they got big.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Kind of a good point.
That's
cool.
fair.
Cool.
But yeah, I do suggest, if you have any time, obviously after this, there's a documentary that the BBC made about XTC called This Is Pop. Highly recommended you check it out. because
Cool.
it contextualizes pretty much their whole ordeal and how they went like to stop touring and then concentrating on their studio sound.
Very cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting drama with that because it wasn't. I mean,
it wasn't good for the band.
Yeah.
It was more good for Alan Moulding.
yeah. There was like psychological, like stage fright issues and all this other stuff going on. It's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that is the top 12, guys. That's the top 12.
We did it,
guys. And man, what a great time. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come and talk about this. I got a lot out of it for sure.
Me too.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
The point of all these things is to like kind of try to recreate whenever you sat at home and with your buddies and sit on the couch and put on an album and talked about it. It's difficult to do that these days. We just don't do it the same way. So
people don't absorb music that way these days.
No. So for me to have a chance to sit down and talk to anybody about this stuff and crack it open and dig deep on it, I really appreciate it. It's good times. And it's really gratifying to me to do it.
Me too.
I mean, just think. Now you can pay what, $10-12 a month for Spotify, and you have access to the world's music library, basically.
Yep.
It used to be your sweat investment for an album. You'd work just to go get that one album, and then you'd play it to death.
Right.
It's just a different world.
Ride your bike across town while your mom thought you were at your neighbor's house.
Yep.
Come back with 2112 in the back of your backpack. Don't let your mom see it because it's got a pentagram on it.
Oh, right. If I was good, I'd get a 45 at the end of a grocery store trip.
There you go. I remember getting Asia Astra from Skaggs Alpha Beta behind those big cases where you put the hand in the hole and like look at it.
Oh my gosh!
Oh
remember
yeah!
That?
Oh yeah!
Yeah. So. Yeah, we don't do that anymore, unfortunately. That's that Rick Beato post that was talking about that for sure.
Right. Yeah, I kind of borrowed from him. Sorry.
No, absolutely. But it's true. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and parse through with me. And I hope that we will continue in next fall. If you've been keeping up, I've been putting out all sorts of wacky stuff this summer that we'll be putting out there. My wife went to Iceland earlier this year and brought back 12 Icelandic albums from Icelandic artists. None of which I'd ever heard of before, so that's all super cool.
Probably none of them are Sigur Rós.
None of them are Sigur Rós. No Sigur Rós, no Bjork, no Johan Johansson this time around either. So all people that were new to me, I'd never heard of any of them. And that's half of what we're doing this summer. Yeah. It's crazy, and just as a preview, it's crazy to me how much quality music comes out of Iceland. It's crazy.
I didn't know either.
Who knew?
My wife just goes to a record store. Is like, hey, what's hip right now? She brought back all this stuff, and it's all insanely good. None of it stinks.
Well, they got nothing else to do up there.
Yeah, I guess not. So, on the lookout for that, guys.
All right.
And thanks for your time, guys.
All right. Thanks very much. Good seeing everybody.
You too. Take care, guys.
Rock on.
Sounds good, man. You too. And thanks for being with us.
Nice to meet you, Chris.